Sammy the squirrel loved collecting acorns. He had the biggest pile in the whole forest. One winter, his friend Ruby Rabbit knocked on his door. "I'm so hungry," Ruby said. "Can you share some acorns?" Sammy looked at his pile and felt nervous. "What if I run out?" he thought. But then he remembered how Ruby once helped him build his treehouse. "Of course," Sammy said, handing Ruby a basket of acorns. That spring, Ruby thanked Sammy by planting new trees, filling the forest with even more acorns than before. Sharing what you have can make life better for everyone.
Growing with kindness. The seed sprouted into a small tree. Lily continued to care for it, sharing stories and singing songs. The tree grew taller and stronger, its leaves rustling with joy. Other children saw Lily's kindness and started helping too. They brought water, cleared weeds, and shared their laughter. The tree blossomed with beautiful, colorful flowers.
Once upon a time, there was a tiny ant named Andy. Andy lived in a busy ant colony with many other ants, all working together. But Andy was different from the others. While the other ants worked hard gathering food, Andy was afraid of the big world outside the colony. One day, a huge storm hit, and the rain flooded the entrance to the anthill. The queen ant called for help. "We need someone brave to find a way out and gather food before the storm gets worse," she said. The other ants were too scared to leave, but Andy knew this was his chance to show everyone that even the smallest ants could be brave. He marched outside into the pouring rain, unsure of what he would find. But as he walked through the puddles, he found a huge pile of berries, perfect for the colony's food supply. He carried as much as he could back to the hill, feeling proud of himself. When he returned, the other ants cheered. "Andy, you did it. You are braver than we thought," said the queen. Andy smiled and said, "Sometimes, being brave means doing something even when you are scared. It is okay to be small, as long as you try your best."
In the charming village of Sunflower Hollow, nestled between rolling hills and sparkling streams, lived a curious little girl named Lisa. Lisa was known for her bright smile, her flowing chestnut hair, and her endless collection of treasures. Her room was like a magical cave, filled with shiny stones she had gathered by the river, colorful feathers from her forest walks, ribbons tied in perfect bows, and stacks of golden-covered books that told stories of adventure and wonder. Lisa loved her treasures deeply and guarded them closely. Every time her younger brother, Harry, peered into her room and asked, "Lisa, can I borrow one of your books?" she would shake her head firmly. "No, Harry. These are my special things. You can play with your own toys." Harry would shrug and wander off, leaving Lisa alone with her collection. She did not mean to be unkind, she just believed that her treasures were hers and hers alone. One day, after a heavy rainstorm, Lisa decided to explore the meadow near her home. The grass was lush and green, glistening with tiny droplets of rain. The sky was a brilliant blue, with fluffy white clouds drifting lazily. Lisa carried her satchel, ready to collect any new treasures she might find. As she walked through the meadow, she noticed something unusual. Near the base of an old oak tree, she heard soft sniffles. Lisa stopped in her tracks, her heart beating faster. "Who's there?" she called out gently. From behind the tree, a tiny squirrel emerged. His fur was damp, and his big brown eyes were filled with tears. "Oh, hello," he squeaked, looking up at Lisa. "I am sorry to bother you. I did not mean for anyone to hear me." Lisa knelt down to the squirrel's level. "Why are you crying?" she asked, her voice soft with concern. The squirrel wiped his eyes with his tiny paws. "I spent all autumn gathering acorns to store for winter," he explained. "But during the storm last night, the wind knocked over my hiding place, and now I have nothing left. I do not know what to do." Lisa's heart ached as she listened to the squirrel's story. She thought about the jar of acorns she had collected just last week. It was one of her favorite treasures, sitting proudly on her shelf. For a moment, she hesitated. If I give him my acorns, she thought, I'll have fewer treasures. But then, she looked at the squirrel's tearful face and felt a warm tug in her chest. "Wait here," she said, standing up. The squirrel blinked in surprise. "Where are you going?" "I'll be right back," Lisa promised. She ran all the way home, her satchel bouncing against her side. Once inside, she climbed onto her stool and reached for the jar of acorns. She hesitated briefly, but then she smiled, imagining how happy the squirrel would be. When Lisa returned to the meadow, the squirrel was still sitting by the tree, looking sad and defeated. She held out the jar. "Here," she said. "These are for you." The squirrel's eyes widened in disbelief. "For me? Really?" His tiny paws trembled as he took the jar. "Thank you. You have saved me." Lisa watched as the squirrel carefully tucked the jar under his arm. Then, to her surprise, he scampered up the tree and returned with a shiny golden leaf. "This is for you," he said, placing it in Lisa's hand. "A gift for your kindness." Lisa smiled, her heart feeling lighter than ever. As she walked home, she thought about how good it felt to help someone in need. The golden leaf shimmered in her hand, but the warmth in her chest was the real treasure. The next day, Lisa was walking through the village when she saw Mrs. Smith, the elderly woman who sold flowers at the market. Mrs. Smith was struggling to carry a heavy basket of herbs and blossoms. Her steps were slow, and her back was bent from the weight. Lisa ran up to her. "Mrs. Smith, can I help you with your basket?" she asked. Mrs. Smith looked at her with a grateful smile. "Oh, that would be lovely, dear. Thank you." Lisa took the basket and walked with Mrs. Smith to the market. Once they arrived, Mrs. Smith handed Lisa a small bouquet of daisies. "For you," she said. "Kindness deserves kindness in return." Lisa tucked the daisies into her satchel, her heart glowing with happiness. As she walked home, she noticed other opportunities to help. She held open a gate for Farmer Joe, who was carrying a crate of apples. She helped little Harry untangle his kite string. And she even shared her ribbons with her friend Lucy, who wanted to decorate her doll house. That evening, as Lisa sat in her room surrounded by her treasures, she had an idea. She would host a kindness festival for the entire village. She spent the next week preparing. She baked cookies shaped like hearts and stars, decorated the meadow with ribbons and lanterns, and created little gift bags filled with treasures from her collection. When the day of the festival arrived, the meadow was alive with laughter and joy. Villagers of all ages gathered to share stories, play games, and enjoy the delicious treats Lisa had made. Lisa stood on a tree stump and clapped her hands for attention. "Thank you all for coming," she said, her voice ringing with excitement. "Today, we are celebrating kindness. I have learned that sharing what we have and helping others is the greatest treasure of all." The villagers cheered, and soon they began sharing their own acts of kindness. Mr. Baker talked about how he gave free bread to a hungry traveler. Farmer Joe shared how he let a stray kitten sleep in his barn. Even little Harry stood up and said, "I helped Mama fold the laundry yesterday." As the sun set and the lanterns cast a warm glow over the meadow, Lisa felt a deep sense of happiness. She realized that the more kindness you give, the more it grows, like a tiny spark turning into a glowing fire. From that day on, Lisa became known as Lisa the Kind. She continued to share her treasures, help her neighbors, and spread joy wherever she went. Sunflower Hollow became a place where kindness blossomed like wildflowers, and everyone learned that the magic of love and sharing was the greatest treasure of all.
Ollie loved puzzles. Big puzzles, small puzzles, puzzles with castles, animals, and spaceships. He loved them all. His biggest challenge yet was a 1-0-piece puzzle of a beautiful forest. Ollie had worked on it for days, carefully fitting each piece into place. This is going to be amazing. Ollie grinned as he added the final corner piece. Only one piece remained, the one that showed a bright red bird perched on a tree branch. But it wasn't there. Ollie searched everywhere, under the table, behind the couch, even in his toy box, but the red bird piece was gone. "That's strange," said Ollie's sister Mia. "I saw your friend Jack playing with a puzzle piece yesterday." Ollie's face turned red. Jack must have taken it. The next day at school, Ollie stormed up to Jack. "You took my puzzle piece." "What? No, I didn't." Jack's eyes widened. "Yes, you did." Ollie snapped. "Mia, saw you?" "I was just looking at it," Jack said quietly. "I didn't take it." Ollie didn't believe him. He spent the whole day glaring at Jack and ignoring him at recess. That evening, Ollie went back to his puzzle. Frustrated, he pushed the puzzle box aside, and there, underneath it, lay the missing red bird piece. "Oh no," Ollie whispered. The next day, Ollie found Jack sitting alone. His usual smile was gone. "Hey, about yesterday," Ollie mumbled. "I found the puzzle piece. I'm really sorry for blaming you." Jack shrugged. "It's okay," but Ollie knew it wasn't okay. "I wasn't fair to you," he said. "Would you want to come over later and help me finish it?" Jack's face brightened. "Sure!" That afternoon, the two boys completed the puzzle together. When they placed the red bird piece in its spot, the picture was finally whole. "I'm glad you asked me to come," Jack said. "Me too," Ollie smiled. "It wouldn't have felt right without you." From that day on, Ollie remembered an important lesson. When you jump to conclusions, you might hurt someone who didn't deserve it.
Max loved running, but he was always the last to finish in races. One day, his grandmother gave him a pair of shiny, magical shoes. "These shoes will help you run faster than ever," she said. Max was excited and put them on right away. The next day, he joined a race. As soon as the race started, Max's shoes sparkled, and he zoomed ahead. "Wow," he said. "These shoes really work." He finished first and was thrilled. But soon, Max started to rely on the shoes too much. He did not practice running anymore because he thought the shoes would do all the work. In the next race, the shoes did not sparkle as brightly, and Max barely finished first. He realized that it was not the shoes that made him a good runner, but his own practice and effort. Max went back to running every day, without the magic shoes, and in the next race, he won, not because of magic, but because he had worked hard. Lena's small garden was her pride and joy. Bright marigolds lined the fence, tomatoes grew in neat rows, and her sunflowers stretched toward the sky. Every morning before school, Lena watered her plants and whispered kind words to them. One afternoon, Lena spotted her neighbor, Noah, climbing over the fence. His face was scrunched with frustration. "I just need some sticks," Noah muttered, snapping the tallest sunflower's stem. Lena gasped. "Noah, you are ruining my garden." "I'm sorry," Noah blurted out and ran back to his yard. Lena's heart pounded. That sunflower had been her favorite, the tallest and brightest of them all. She told her mom what had happened. "Maybe Noah was having a bad day," her mom suggested. "Sometimes people hurt others when they are upset. Try not to stay angry too long." But Lena was angry. Each time she looked at the broken sunflower, her chest felt tight. She ignored Noah at school the next day and turned away when he tried to say hello. Days passed, and Lena's anger still simmered. Then one afternoon, dark clouds gathered, and the wind howled. The storm battered Lena's garden all night. The next morning, Lena's garden was a mess. Bent plants, muddy soil, it looked hopeless. She knelt beside her flowers, tears stinging her eyes. Then she heard footsteps behind her. It was Noah, holding a small pot with a sunflower seedling inside. I know I messed up, he said softly. I should not have hurt your sunflower. I want to help fix things. Lena stared at the little plant in his hands. Her heart wobbled. She could stay angry. Or she could give Noah a second chance, just like her mom had said. Lena smiled, wiping her eyes. Okay, but you're helping me replant everything. Together, they worked in the dirt, planting the new sunflower in the center of the garden. Noah even shared a bag of seeds from his own yard. Over time, the garden grew stronger and brighter than before. And right in the middle stood the tallest, happiest sunflower, the one Noah had brought. From that day on, Lena and Noah became best friends. Lena realized that holding on to anger only made her feel worse, but forgiveness had helped her garden and her heart bloom again. In a cozy small town called Sunnyvale, there lived a boy named Leo who loved to build things. He spent hours crafting towers from blocks, bridges from sticks, and even castles from cardboard. But Leo's greatest joy came from creating something special: smiles. One sunny morning, Leo decided to build a kindness chain. He grabbed a roll of colorful paper, cut it into strips, and wrote a kind message on each one. Messages like, "You are amazing. Your smile makes the world brighter. Keep trying. You're doing great." Leo glued the first few strips into loops and thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if kindness kept going and never stopped? He raced to his best friend Maya's house, carrying his growing chain. "Maya, will you add a kindness message too?" Leo asked eagerly. Maya grinned and grabbed a marker. She wrote, "You are a star, shining bright." They added her loop to the chain and set off to find more friends. They found Sam, who loved soccer but often felt shy. Sam added, "Your ideas are awesome." Next was Ella, who had the sweetest singing voice but rarely believed in herself. She wrote, "Your voice is beautiful, keep singing." With each new message, the kindness chain grew longer and longer. Soon, nearly everyone in Sunnyvale had written something special. One day, Leo noticed his neighbor, Mr. Thompson, sitting alone on his porch. Mr. Thompson always seemed quiet and serious, but today he looked sad. Leo gently placed a piece of paper in Mr. Thompson's hand and said, "Would you like to add something?" Mr. Thompson smiled softly, wiped his eyes, and wrote, "The world is better with you in it." The next morning, Sunnyvale's town square was filled with color. The kindness chain stretched from lamppost to tree, looping around benches and weaving through fences. People stopped to read the messages, smiling and sharing kind words of their own. "Look at what we built," Maya beamed. Leo smiled back and said, "No, we did not build it. Kindness did." And from that day on, Sunnyvale felt warmer, brighter, and happier, because kindness, like a chain, has no end when you keep it going. Daisy was a little dandelion who lived in a big green meadow. While the other flowers were tall and colorful, Daisy was short and had small yellow petals. She often felt sad, wishing she could be like the other flowers. One windy day, a gust of wind blew through the meadow, and Daisy felt her petals lift off the ground. "What's happening?" she wondered. As she floated higher and higher, she realized she was drifting through the air. She was flying. As she soared, she saw the world from a unique perspective. She flew over rivers, trees, and even other flowers. Eventually, she landed in a faraway meadow where other dandelions grew. They greeted her warmly. "Welcome to our home, little one," they said. Daisy realized that even though she was not the tallest or the brightest flower, she had something special her. Seeds could travel far and grow fresh flowers in places where they were needed. From then on, Daisy was proud of who she was. "It's not about being the tallest or brightest. It is about making a difference wherever you can," she thought with a smile. Sam loves soccer, but lately things had not been going well. His teammate Jake always seemed to mess up their plays. He would miss passes, kick the ball too hard, or just freeze when the ball came his way. During practice one afternoon, Sam lost his patience. "Come on, Jake," Sam shouted. "You're ruining everything." Jake's face turned red, and he quietly walked off the field. That evening, Sam's coach pulled him aside. "I know you're frustrated," Coach said gently. "But remember, everyone's carrying an invisible backpack." Sam frowned. "What does that mean?" Coach smiled. "It means people carry things you cannot see: worries, sadness, or struggles. Sometimes that backpack feels heavy." Sam did not understand, but he nodded anyway. The next morning at school, Sam noticed Jake sitting alone at lunch. Something about him seemed heavy. "Mind if I sit here?" Sam asked. Jake shrugged. They ate quietly until Sam finally asked, "Hey, is everything okay?" Jake sighed. "My dad's been sick. He is in the hospital a lot, and I am worried about him. I have not been sleeping much, and I guess I just cannot focus on soccer." Sam felt his chest tighten. This must be Jake's invisible backpack, he thought. "I'm sorry," Sam said. "I didn't know." "It's okay," Jake mumbled. At practice that afternoon, Sam did something different. Instead of getting frustrated when Jake missed a pass, Sam ran over and clapped him on the shoulder. "Nice try," Sam said with a smile. "Let's try it again." Jake's face lit up, and this time his pass was perfect. By the end of practice, Jake was smiling more than Sam had seen in weeks. That night, Sam thought about what Coach had said. Everyone is carrying something, he realized, and sometimes kindness is the best way to help lighten the load.